one of the things that really test your integration and fortify your integration is when you re-enter the world, your job, your family dynamics, your friend circle. These everyday experiences test your integration in very subtle ways, and they fortify, solidify your integration until it's embodied, until it's the embodiment of who you truly are. Some of these examples may seem so subtle that you don't even recognize them as a test, as an experience that really fortifies your integration. I'll give you an example. You may see that some of your old friends, acquaintances, maybe clients, or extended family members reach out to you, and they sort of address the old pattern, the old you. They're speaking to the old you that they remember. And in this moment, you're presented with an opportunity. Do you respond to them from the old you, or do you respond to them as you are right now, the truth? And you see, it's so subtle, because you'll find there's this tension in you at this point of your integration, where it may feel like you are suppressing yourself if you respond from who you once were. And you're tested in this example, in this situation, to see, are you actually integrating the true you? Or are you slipping back into the conditioned pattern? Are you slipping back into the past? Because really they are interacting with the past version of you, who they remembered. And you'll see that this is such a sneaky invitation for you to re-enter that dynamic, that relationship with them based on the past version of yourself. They sort of expect you to meet them how you once did. And that's what feels familiar. That's what feels comfortable for them and for you. What feels unfamiliar, what feels uncomfortable, is meeting them as you are right now, in this present moment. Meeting them as your fullness, your wholeness, which often looks like overcoming that tension within yourself. That tension is that struggle within yourself where you are now more aware of that suppression, pushing something down instead of just expressing it. that sort of internal tension of identity, where the identity, the old you, is sort of coming back, sort of sneaking through the back door. And it does that in these relationships. Like I said, perhaps an old client reaches out, an old friend, an extended family member that is reconnecting. So it feels sort of harmless. It has a little bit of the past or some nostalgia feeling to it. But you can't deny that you've transformed. Since experiencing this transformational journey, you can't deny that you have transformed. So now the question is, are you meeting them as you are now, after that transformation? Are you meeting them as the truth of you? Or are you meeting them as the old version of yourself, the past version of yourself, which makes the conversation feel comfortable and makes them feel comfortable and feels familiar to you? And that's where it's so easy to slip into that pattern. It's so easy to not integrate who you truly are in these everyday experiences. And this is really where you're challenged. This is really how you fortify the integration. You don't fortify the integration sitting on some meditation mat in your room with the door closed and the lights off. You integrate it in the everyday life. And this is where it's so easy to slip back into the old patterns because they're familiar and comfortable. That's why I said it's so subtle, it's so nuanced. It comes up as an old friend just reaching out, or a family member, or an old client, or just someone that you just bump into, run into. And what you'll find is actually, as you re-enter the world, as you return to the ordinary world, you see that these sort of old friends and family sort of just kind of reappear out of nowhere. And you see, it's not what's the word here? A coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's really an experience that helps you integrate. So you're presented with this option. Do I slip back into the old pattern, meet them as my old self, where we can sort of reconnect from that past version of myself? Or am I standing as the truth of who I am and meeting them as my fullness, full expression, not suppressed, where there's no more tension within yourself? This is when the integration is fortified. There's no more tension. There's no more option, actually, of meeting them as a past version of yourself. Because in these experiences where you bump into old friends and family, you keep on making the choice of integration, meeting them as the truth of who you are. So you no longer slip into that old pattern, old dynamic. So you stop suppressing yourself, essentially. And you see that when you're not suppressing the truth of who you are, then actually what's expressing is the truth of who you are. And like I said, the discomfort that you may experience is that it shakes up your relationship with this old friend or this family member. You're meeting them in a way they haven't experienced you as. But also, it's not just for them, because you're meeting them in a way that you haven't experienced yourself. That you haven't experienced what it's like to show up as your authentic self in these everyday relationships. You haven't experienced yourself showing up in these relationships without holding back, without diluting yourself, without dimming your light, without watering yourself down, without collapsing, without folding, without shrinking. These are all different ways of really expressing that moment when you're presented that option. Because it's, again, the fear of the unknown comes up. How are they going to respond to this new version of myself, so to say? You know how they're going to respond to the old version of yourself because that's familiar. It feels safe. But to the new version, which is the true version, there arises that fear once again when you're integrating. How are they going to receive this message if I were to truly express myself fully? Are they going to not reply to me because they're going to think I'm too much or too intense? This is going to be awkward if I respond to them from the one who's transformed. So you see, it's very nuanced, but it's right there. If we want to simplify it, there's fear. There's fear. And that's what stepping through that fear will really fortify that integration, because you're no longer choosing fear. You're no longer making the choice based on fear. You're no longer living in fear. This is where it tests you in these everyday examples. Shrinking, suppressing, collapsing is all because of fear. So you choose the familiar, which is the path of fear, instead of the unknown, which is the path of love. And by choosing the uncertainty, you don't know how they're going to respond, but that doesn't stop you from living the truth of who you are. It doesn't stop you from fully expressing yourself. And you continue to make that decision over and over and over in these relationships that are fortifying your integration. And you see this then becomes the new norm. It becomes natural. And when it's natural and there's not even the option of slipping back into that past version of yourself, that is embodiment. When you're embodying your true self in the everyday life as you know it, you see that you're just simply showing up as who you truly are. You're expressing yourself fully, without the filter, without the mask, without shrinking, without lowering yourself to their comfort level. And you see, this is actually when you become magnetic. Because those who aren't ready to meet you in your fullness, they'll just simply fall away. They'll be redirected. And that experience of them messaging you or bumping into you at the grocery store, that was simply that experience to present that opportunity. It's sort of like life asking you, would you like to return back to the old version of yourself? Or are you ready to live the truth of who you are? Would you like to return back to pretending? Or would you like to live authentically? And when you make that decision over and over and over, that's how, one, you're testing the integration, or you're being tested. That integration is being tested, and it's also being fortified when you're continuing to choose you in your fullness, you in your wholeness, you in your truth. Then you see that is the path of embodiment, and you're simply embodying the truth of who you are in everyday life. Now, perhaps you are experiencing these experiences, these situations in your relationships, and you haven't seen it like this. You aren't aware that these are actually the challenges of integration. You see that this is really the integration that transforms your everyday life. There's no transformation of everyday life without integration. So you see, this is past the realization stage. This is not about resting as awareness post-realization. This is about living as what you realized in everyday life. This is not about avoiding everyday life. This is about integrating the realization into everyday life. So there's actually no two. It's one. And it's you in your wholeness, your fullness. This full expression of what you are is your authenticity. You're not pretending to be something you're not just because it feels familiar, it feels safe, it feels comfortable. You're showing up as your authentic self. And you see, this is what transforms your life. So if you're ready to integrate, if you're ready to live authentically, if you're ready to embody your true nature in everyday life, then join me in living truth.